The NPL Victoria Podcast is brought to you by Melville Bodyworks, located at 106 Melville Rd Brunswick West. For best-in-class panel beating and smash repairs and seamless support for insurance claims, call now on 8378 5555.
Forrester whips it in. It's a great ball in Bidwa! He's done it!
Alexander indirect all the way in! Incredible!
Mankiewicz battling for it.
Schroen! Marcus Schroen has done it again!
And it's a good header away to save the day. Oh, wow! Welcome back, NPL!
Comes out with the ball. Berishevic to strike!
Oh, Charlie! Boom!
You could whack a frame on it. It was just art.
Wild weekend of NPL Victoria in the books, and triumph or crisis if you're a member of the Victorian Maltese diaspora across the state. The best is very good. Caroline Springs are top of the league. Green Gully are down the bottom. There's a whole mess of madness in between. We're going to get into it. We might have expected that there would be a Maltese team in the top six and one Maltese team in the relegation zone going into this podcast this season. Hasn't quite panned out the way we expected so far, but that is just a small note in a big weekend of NPL Victoria. Lots to sink our teeth into. No Josh Parrish, as he's still on a diplomatic mission with the Oceanic Football Confederation, but we have been able to claw back Nick Debano. Nick, I was worried for you last night at the Veneto Club. I was starting to get a little anxious that the air raid sirens were going to go on. Because when those Josh Dennett long throws, when he got to a fifth long throw in a row in the second half, I was worried you might have to try and find, where's the Veneto Club? It's got the bocce room, it's got the basketball courts, it's got a gym. Where's the bomb shelter? Because I need to get in.
Yeah, good evening, Lachie. We'll talk about that game a little bit later on when we get to our VPL 1 segment. Got to say, guys, what a weekend. Good to be back. You guys all got your strays in last week while I was away, so now you got to say it to my face, Lachie Flanagan. But anyways, it's not the week to probably be talking about, Bulleen on the highest of notes after that disappointing loss yesterday, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Josh from his back on his Oceanian diplomatic journey, and I'll be relieving him tomorrow for the final game in Melbourne. We've been a bit of tag team between Josh Parrish and I over the last couple of weeks. It's been a busy 10 or so days out at the home of the Matildas in Olympic Village.
Man, I'm not going to be making any jokes about you. I'm just glad you're okay. I'm just glad you survived the air raid last night. That's the most important thing for me. And I was
okay in the box.
You might have thought, why have I decided to start this podcast by mentioning the differing fortunes of the two Maltese clubs? Well, one thing unites them beyond their heritage, and it is their angst at Mr. Big Bad Mark Ivkovic. Ivka, welcome to you. How are you faring after an interesting weekend and mixed fortunes for two teams who had a bit to say about the podcast last week, or two supporters of two teams who had a bit to say?
Thank you, Lachie. It was good to be sick in bed all weekend because I was able to watch virtually every game, so that helped. No one bothering me in the house. But I
think watching all the games is the sickness, Mark.
But so my Maltese fan club seems to be growing week to week. But as I said last week, it's a long season, boys, so don't get on your high horse too quickly.
It is a long season indeed. I tell you what else has been a long, long time in the making. 1,055 days to be exact. And that is Heidelberg United, I should say, their loss at home in the regular season to Dandenong City. Their first regular season loss in NPL Victoria since the 9th of April 2023. They did have that loss, of course, in the Doherty Cup. They lost on penalties in finals, but in the regular season, have not seen it since 2023. Bentley was still in the league. George Katsakis was the coach of Heidelberg. Moreland City, remember them? They were still a thing in the top flight of NPL Victoria. A lot has changed since then, including the rise of Dandenong City. Ivka, what a win as Nick Tolios' side were able to exact a small but still meaningful piece of grand final revenge here.
100%. What a win. I said when we were predicting the game last week that I had a feeling that Dandenong City was going to get something out of the game. Obviously, didn't tip him, didn't have the balls to. But for that fact that Heidelberg hasn't lost a regular season game at Olympic Village under Johnny A's tenure, and a fair while back into Katsakis' tenure as well in his last season. So to pull that off is a remarkable effort by Dandenong City, considering that they had a poor performance the week before. But when they needed their big guns to stand up, they did. Jamie Latham with the opening goal has been a bit quiet in the first two games, but he was back to his best on Friday night. And I just thought Nick Tolios set them up really, really well. He knows how to play against Johnny A's teams, and we saw that last year. They went to the Village and got a point in that game, pushed them all the way in the grand final. They lost at home against them, but it was only a couple of late penalties that decided that game. So, he does know how to set up his team against them. And I thought they looked comfortable throughout the whole game, Dandenong City. Harry Ashcroft, with his first start for his new club at Dandenong City, looked really comfortable playing as a defensive midfielder, which I thought was a smart move. Gave him a lot more steel in there. He was signed to replace Giannakopoulos, who departed. And I thought it was a perfect performance from him. Got a goal as well from pressing high up the park, won the ball and ended up getting it back and scoring and got the reward for it. But yeah, like I said, very comfortable for Dandenong City. They just, when you're about to write them off, they always find a way to get themselves back into contention and then put out a performance like that reminds everyone that they are a good footballing side. They're not the fanciest of teams. They just play a very measured style of football. It's a little bit slow, but it's very composed. There's a lot of thought behind it, and a patience game. And that's what needed to happen on Friday night against Heidelberg. Heidelberg, on the other hand, look, it's too early to look into this result for them. They've won the first two games. It's a loss. They did start the season very slowly last year as well. Lost the opening game. Lost, I think it was round 4 or 5 that they lost another game, and then they got going and hit their straps. There is a few concerns at the minute though, with no Bull Jawach and no real obvious like-for-like replacement for him. Lee coming in from Auckland for the replacement for Sabit Noor. At the moment, it's very early, but doesn't look up to that same level. They still have Bezzetto to come in shortly. So, interesting to see what Johnny A does there. So, we mentioned this, that the players that they lost, it appears though they haven't replaced them with the same type of quality. But, those guys still need to find their feet in the league too. Lee and O'Sullivan, the replacements on that right-hand side. So definitely not alarm bells for Heidelberg. But it will be interesting to watch them live in the flesh this week against Preston. Interested to see if there is any differences, but I wouldn't be sounding any alarm bells just yet at the Village.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, because I have made this point before, but I think it's pertinent to push it again. I think your argument about maybe some of the players who have come in as replacements for some of the key pieces having not found their feet is a fair one. But remember last year when in that slow start to the season, Dalibor Markovic was the starting left back. And I know that left back, some people might joke and say it's not as influential of a position or whatever. But to the way this team plays, the fullbacks were pretty important. He looked like a busted flush, very early days. And there wasn't an obvious solution in the squad. But now Fletcher Fulton is one of the best fullbacks in the league. So the answers may not be there right now for Johnny A, but this is the guy that you have faith in to get square pegs, brute force through round holes. Like, he's the guy who could do it. Nick, I don't sense there's a level of panic from you from a Heidelberg perspective. What did you sort of make of this game?
Nah, no panic whatsoever. And listening to Johnny A speaking to club media after the game, he summed it up perfectly. This is sometimes a bit of a reality check and the loss that you need to have early in the year. And Ivka, you spoke about last season. When they had those first two couple of losses, maybe it did serve as the reality check to get them going and work out what isn't working, work out what their best 11 is, because they're probably still trying to work out exactly what their best makeup is with all these new faces, especially when you've got, as you mentioned, basically a new front three. You've lost Jamal Ali, who was one of the best players in the league last season at right back. So they've had to make some changes on the fly. They have had to bring in some new faces. But the other thing that he did mention was that he has constantly told his players, this season's not going to be the same as last year. Shorter preseason, the target's on their back. They're now the hunted. Everyone's going to be wanting to come after them. And they've had some really tough games in these first few weeks. But it's not time, I think, to worry. I think if there was a trend throughout the first few weeks that, they were losing every week or they weren't playing so well, you'd be a bit concerned. But they've managed to get 6 points without playing anywhere near their best football. They've played at probably a level that's, probably still in gear 2, but we know that they can still go another couple of gears and still be one of the best teams in this league. And that game against Preston will serve as, I wouldn't say it's an entire litmus test, because Preston obviously are the form team right now, and there's a lot of football still to be played this year. But it would be good to see, I guess, if they can get up for that game and how they respond after a defeat, because it seems like every time that they actually do lose a game, which is rare, they are very good at bouncing back in those games that matter. When you think about the matter in how they responded in finals last year after that loss against Avondale in the regular season, they came out all guns blazing. Don't think about the game against Port Melbourne at the end of the season, which was basically just get through to finals. You look at the way in which they responded to that and went on to win the championship. Obviously didn't play Avondale again, but they still had to go through and get the job done in those games. So I think that they'll be fine in the long run. As for Dandy City, though, how many times in any sport do you see that whenever you get a final rematch, like a grand final rematch or a cup final rematch or whatever it might be, that the loser always wins? I think it's probably almost a 7 or 8 times out of 10 that it would happen, because they're so up for these sort of games. And this is exactly what Dandy City needed. Lachie, I think you're probably the happiest out of all of us here on the podcast, because the negative points has officially been wiped, which is great to see. They've broken even. They're back to 0, and now they can start to build from here. But 4 points out of a possible 9 to start the season, not too bad for them. But as we know with Dandy City, they're notoriously slow starters. They find their feet as it goes on. If you rattled off the positives for them, they'd be so pleased that they were able to do that and get the job done. But my only other thing that I noticed is, and we spoke about club songs last week, and we're going to talk about this a little bit today. We've always got our eyes on the team singing the song after the game, and I was watching the video of Dandy City in the change room singing the song, and I had my eyes on Jack Webster the entire time, and he was standing there, and I was hoping, I'm like, is he going to rip out the knee slide today? Are they going to get I saw someone put some Powerade on the ground. I thought, he's looking at that. Is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? But he held it together. And he was just waiting, I think, for the right moment. But yeah, they were singing that song with gusto. Don't you worry. They really loved that win. So big result for Dandy City, but for Heidelberg, no stress. I think they'll be fine in the long run.
Nick, I think the reason he might have elected against going for the knee slide is that he might have already put his knee out. I direct you, if you haven't seen the game, to the 55th minute of this game. He performs one of the most monstrous clearances I've ever seen in my life. He's about 10 metres inside his own defensive half, and there's a player trying to run in behind. He cuts out the loose ball. He clears it from 10 metres inside his own half, out for a goal kick, like up and direct, like NFL punter style length. It is well worth another look. Very, very no nonsense in amongst some quality from the other players around him. Ivka, do you think that Dandenong City have got one of the more underrated midfields in this competition? Because I kind of feel like when this team is at its best, it's when its midfielders are performing really well. Jamie Latham back to his best. But I thought Harry Ashcroft as well, in his debut for Dandy, playing as a 6. We've seen him play as a central defender for such a vast majority of his time at Hume and at Dandenong Thunder, but especially at Hume in the last couple of years. I think we might have actually forgotten how good a player he can be as a defensive midfielder, because I thought his goal was great and well taken, but the way he cut the supply lines to the Heidelberg attack as well in front of that back four, really impressive.
Yeah, you're right. They do have a very underrated midfield. You got Danny Kim in there as well, Brad Plant. They've got a lot of very good players, and for whatever reason, they just fly under the radar every single season. And that's why I've tipped them to make the six again this season, because one, Nick Tolios, his coaching ability is up there with the best in this league. It was evident on Friday night. And then you mentioned Jack Webster. You've got a leader like that could, rally his teammates to get up for this game. The trouble is they need to rally themselves to be a little bit more consistent. Corey Sewell, Pierce Clark, Will Bauer, Xander Guy, these are household names in the NPL with a lot of experience. So, it's not a shock to see them beat Heidelberg. I don't think it's a shock result. We're talking about a team that made the grand final last season. So, I think they deserve a little bit more respect in this competition, and they're definitely not easy beats. That's for sure.
And Nick, you talk about fires under the backside, the fire under the backside that trying to get grand final revenge would be, having to wipe off that negative points debt. There's almost an argument to suggest that it's been a net benefit for the teams who have had to suffer it, because it's motivated them for the start of the season like nothing else. And no better example of that exists than over at Casey Fields at the Melbourne City Football Academy on Sunday, as Preston Lions ran out 3-0 winners against a 10-men Melbourne City. A game that went around the world for probably not the right reasons. Bessian Kutleshi's red card in the 27th minute. A moment, Ivka, that lots of people were talking about, but also in the context of this game and result, a moment upon which the fixture really hinged, because until that 27th minute red card, Melbourne City were right up to their necks in this game against a red-hot team.
Yeah, firstly, I need to issue a formal apology to Melbourne City, because completely wrote them off in the season preview, and that was based on historic evidence of academy teams in this competition. They are a very, very good footballing team, Melbourne City. The way they played on Sunday that's the first time I've watched a full 90 minutes of them this season. I was very impressed. Especially prior to the red card, they had Preston under the pump, and they hit the post early on, had a few good chances, and then obviously the red card changed things a little bit. But that's where I take my hat off to them, because it didn't change the way they played. They had Lachie Charles, the goalkeeper, step into virtually playing as a centre back when they were in possession. They were quite comfortable on the ball. He was very comfortable on the ball. And I thought that was still in the game. That period just before halftime, Bryce's header and then a penalty to Romero changes things going into halftime. But nonetheless, I thought they could hold their heads very, very high after that performance. I was very impressed by their technical ability, and I was actually talking to someone the other day about the difference between Victory and Melbourne City, and I used a good comparison where Avondale played Melbourne Victory last season, I think at this time of the year, very, very early on at Avenger Park. And Victory had got off to a not bad start in the league, and they got an early red card in that game, and they were 1-0 up in that game as well, and they completely capitulated in that game against Avondale. Melbourne City didn't capitulate. And they were in that contest right till the end. Zinni's goal was right at the end of the game. So I think they're a lot more mature side, not by age but by mentality than Victory was last season, and they've got a lot more quality than Melbourne Victory had last season. Jaden Nikovsky, my God, what a player! He is one of the best centre-backs I've seen play anywhere. He's got a massive future ahead of him. didn't know too much about him, didn't realise he was the Joey's captain until after the game, and I can see why. He won't be playing NPL football for long, that's for sure. He'll be in the A-League off overseas and playing in the Socceroos in the next couple of years, so enjoy him while he lasts in this competition. But then the rest of the talent they've got, like Lachie Charles, that save he made in the second half was one of the best saves you'll ever see. Exceptional performance. Preston, on the other hand, were they as good as they were in round 2? No, they weren't. Were they fortunate that Melbourne City got a red card? Yes, they were. But they did what they had to do. They were still resolute. They were still creating chances. City made it hard for them, but I don't think City is an easy beat team, especially with the squad they've got at the moment. Whether that lasts the full season or not, that's a different story. But I think Adekube being out for Preston made a big difference to the way they lined up. He was so good in round 2 and probably changed their midfield balance, and him being out, I think, got injured in training during the week, so threw their balance out a little bit. Sian Kuba had to play a little bit of a different role and just change things for them. But again, we saw that Jamal Ali and Aiden Bryce partnership on Sunday afternoon. That's a scary partnership, especially Jamal Ali playing as a centre back is probably the way to go for Preston. Some of the passes he was playing, even just the simple passes, 15, 20-yard passes, are crisp to their feet. It's so easy for Preston to play out from the back and get out of trouble if they're in trouble, because you've got Ali and Bryce, who are both great passers of the ball, can knock a 30, 40-yard pass to get him out of trouble. Then you've got Ali that can make a run all the way from centre-back into an attacking position numerous times throughout that game. I did say that they would break the defensive record of the NPL, and it's looking good so far.
It's all right. Things can happen. Things can surprise you. Yeah, City, I think the unity of purpose, like the collective understanding, is what's so striking about the team. And I think when you contrast the two youth academies, there's probably a difference in quality and senior level experience, but Boris Serostan, when he came in, was also a new coach to that team, was taking them through a new style, a new system, whereas Stu McDonald, he wasn't the head coach last year. Alessandro Diamanti was the head coach, but he is a guy who has been part of that coaching setup and system with these players through the last couple of years into the senior side, and he's also been the head coach when Diamanti was off doing his coaching batters. So they've just got this real sort of united front that they're able to present, which again, for all that positivity, makes the red card in this game all the more frustrating, because you're left to sit there and wonder, what could this game have been had Bessier and Kutleshi not decided to sort of make this shove, which is accentuated by the presence of the Preston's laptop, but I think you've got to have a situational awareness there as a player, Mark. If you're gonna go for that shove in frustration, you've got to be aware of what's around you, because the impacts of it, the outcomes were quite brutal, really.
Who pays for the laptop? That's what I want to know. That should be a part of Kulesh's suspension, is replacing that laptop, because I don't think that I live to see another day. But really, really stupid decision. That's when you watch it back, it actually looks intentional. He looks up. He knew where he was. He knew what was around him. I don't think he thought it was going to end up as bad as it did, with Suto getting a gash to his head. But he knew what he was doing, and pure stupidity from him. And I don't think it's the first time he's caught himself in hot water playing for the academy team. It happened a couple of times last season in VPL 1 for him as well. So he's got a lot to learn. Yes, he's a highly talented player, but if you keep making stupid decisions, you'll find yourself out of that system very quickly, despite your talent.
And fingers crossed that all is okay for Naoki Suto as well, because it was a very nasty one. You could see the blood sort of gushing out of the side of his ear. There were, sort of reports running around that his ear was split open as a result. And again, it would have been very easy to be unsettled by what had happened, Nick, for both sides. But Preston do deserve a bit of credit because while they weren't at their best before the red card, they had a job to get on and do, and they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's 3 points in the bag. And we're going to probably talk about this ad nauseum on the podcast throughout the year, that good teams find a way against tough opposition. And if you can bank those points when you're not playing at your absolute best, that's what matters. And Melbourne City gave them a red hot crack, and they answered the challenge. I think the one thing that really stood out for me, two things from a Preston perspective: Stefan Zinni, very impressive in his 30 minutes on the field. Just another sort of weapon that Zoran Markovski can go to, a tried and trusted weapon to go to throughout this season, that in this already deep attacking unit. Luke Francis played in the under-23s, so he's on the way back, which is just another one to add to that attacking core. And they got Emil Pios back from the bench, getting through half an hour. That's a big step forward for this midfield that was already without Elijah Adekubi. But you add Emil Pios to the mix, and suddenly you've got a midfield group with the likes of Adekubi, Mihalides, Sian Cuba, Pios, as we mentioned, and you can really roll through all those players, and Suto as well.
Kubalay as well to come back.
Yeah, Ollie Kubalay as well. So this team is just incredibly deep. And the form of Jamal Ali's, meaning that players like Matt Bozanovsky is relegated to a bench role for now. And the form of the attackers means John Albano and Jonas Markovski have to work their way back in off the bench. It's a really good problem to have if you're Zoran Markovski. 3 wins from 3 to start the season. You're starting to build a head of steam going into a game against the reigning champions. Exactly what you would want, especially given how they responded after that performance against Oakley, where they were really poor. They got the 3 points, and since then they've been able to score 6 and concede none. I think that's exactly what you would be asking for from this group.
And it did the midfield look a fair bit more balanced when Pios did come into it as well. It just, given he's come in, or pre-injury, playing that deeper sort of midfield role, which just doesn't feel like it's as comfortable or as natural for Sian Kuba, even though he did ultimately come off later in the game. But it probably puts a bit of necessary, when those players come back from injury, fire under the backside of those who are starting as well, that your position's not safe. Like, Jason Romero is a player who's maybe not made huge headlines to start the season. He did score in this game, of course, from the penalty spot, but probably wasn't at his best leading the line. He now has to seriously worry every week about whether or not his position in the 11 is under threat. Aiden Bryce's header as well in the first half to open the scoring was a fantastic header. Love the goal off the bench from Stefan Zinni. He was nearly denied, he was denied another even more spectacular one. And Nick, I know you and I have been talking about how we've both got footy fever, like we want AFL. It's opening round this week, but it cannot come back soon enough. I have a sneaking suspicion that Jonas Markovski's got footy fever as well, because that shepherd he laid in on Lachie Charles to try and stop him from getting back onto the line so that Stefan Zinni could score, that's a footy nut right there. That is the shepherd of a footy almanac.
That is a player who is a true 601 AMer, if there ever is one. But I got to say, just on the point of depth, I mean, if you're Zoran Markovski, you're basically Bruce Wayne going down to your car yard and saying, what do I want to pick today for my 11? You've got the vintage Rolls Royce, you've got the Ferrari Testarossa in Zachary Charchi. I know I called him the Rolls Royce earlier, but being corrected, he's the Ferrari. You've got your vintage cars in there too. And you've got the Batmobile waiting in the wings in Ollie Kubalay when he comes back too, just to give you things on both sides of the field, probably when he's up and going, a top 10 player in this league. And look, they've got some of the best players on every line. They're going to be incredibly hard to beat this season. And it'll be very interesting to see how they manage this, because, if they can go on a bit of a cup run as well with this group, being able to roll through these players, try different things, get points in the bank, especially like if a few players are a bit underdone or they got a bit of a knock, and you can just go, all right, Jamal, you're a bit tired this week. Matt Bosnowski, in you come. You're saying 1 week to Zachary Chianchi, have a week off, play 30 off the bench. John Albano, come on in. How many teams can do that? I don't think there's anyone else in the NPL that has this litany of depth. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, and then if you saw late in the game, he's put Aidan Bryce as a defensive midfielder and brought Matt Bosnowski on to play next to Ali. So, and I've seen Bryce play that position a few times, and he plays it quite comfortably. So that's another option they've got. Just that's the strength that Zoran Markovski's got, the ability to build a squad full of depth. We've seen it for 5 years with Avondale, with the luxuries they always had coming off the bench and players out, not even being able to make the squad. Okay, he does have bigger budgets than some other clubs, but a lot of coaches don't get their recruitment right. Zoran Markovski tends to get his recruitment absolutely spot on.
But it's not just on that last point, Ivka, beyond just personnel versatility of having, quote unquote, 2 or 3 players in each position. They've got players that can play, as you mentioned with Aidan Bryce, a lot of players that can play multiple positions. So it's beyond just having a volume of numbers. It's players that can play 3, 4 different positions. So if you need to tinker things, you can try different things. Like if there is a week where they need to throw Aidan Bryce in as a 6, he's had a look at it for 10 minutes in that game. He can try it in a different sort of setup too. So I think that, again, it's just masterful squad building to have players who can play in a number of positions, but also having a deep enough squad too that if there are injuries, you can call on some extras to step in as well, Lachie.
Zoran Markovski's car yard is looking a bit like... Nick, do you remember Grand Theft Auto Online where you'd have like a really rich mate who'd buy one of those like shark cards? So they had all the virtual currency. So like they've got the top of the range. They've got a garage under their apartment. It's like top of the range Pegasi. Yeah, everything's looking smick as can be. Zoran Markovski is loving life with his premium shark card. Let's go from luxury cars to broken down buses. Avenger Park, Avondale against Green Gully. The must win match, the can't lose cup. Avondale come out victorious in style, 5-0 win against the Green Gully side who ended the game with 10 after Diego Cuba's red card. The headline act, Bruno Fornaroli getting his first 2 NPL Victoria goals, Nick, in serious style, and leaving Green Gully in a very difficult place to start the season.
Well, it wasn't great pre-prep from me because I was quickly doing a quick search through sound effects to find if there was a sound of a broken down car or broken down bus doing the not starting up, because that must have been the Green Gully bus at the bistro, because it still hasn't left. We still haven't seen it in the first 3 weeks. No. Anyways, on to the matters on the field. I mean, wow. Like, this was billed as, a must-win game for both of these two teams, and I could never have seen a 5-0 result coming off the back of that. I mean, especially that when I saw the starting lineup and I thought, Fornaroli not starting together again, interesting. Going to the well again after not scoring in the first 2 games. And then they were able to finally get it going. And look, Bruno, once one went in, he just felt like he had his confidence back. They had really good performances from Morai, and Christian Trajewski was very impressive too. But I feel like as good as Avondale were, and this is a massive win for them, just to get a little bit of pressure off them, to get a big win at home, just keep the Hounds at bay for a little bit longer. The Hounds are certainly starting to circle around Green Gully, because we were on here a couple of weeks ago after the Heidelberg game going, wow, like they actually looked pretty good and probably deserved to get something from that game. But since then, shipping 7 goals, not scoring a single goal in either of those games against Georgies and Avondale, there are big, big concerns. And I know it's a long season. There's a lot of football still to be played. But losing 5-0 on the road against Avondale, especially given their struggles, having not scored a goal all season, alarm bells will certainly be ringing not only through the bistro and the pokies room at Green Gully, but even as well in the football sort of environment there as well. But Ivka, be curious for your thoughts too on this Green Gully situation, because you were very high on them in the preseason for finals, but I think even after round one, I think we were all sort of thinking, wow, they look pretty good. Like this could be the year that they really start to make some inroads. But the last couple of weeks, they've just felt really off it.
Yeah, I've been stewing on this since Saturday afternoon. How hard do you go? What do you say? Well, you can tune into probably episode 5 from last year and listen to us talk about Green Gully and what we said about them after their 5-0 loss to Dandenong City at home, because it's exactly the same shit. It's, they at that point, I think that was round 5, they'd lost to Dandenong City 5-0, and I think the week prior to that they'd lost 1-0 to Port Melbourne. So the pressure was building back then, and it was the same problems. No shots, no goals from open play, which is still the case this season. Yes, all right, they scored from open play. It was from a corner. So, you know what I mean? They haven't created a proper goal scoring opportunity besides set pieces. Same shit last year. Leaky defence, lethargic performances, real lack of desire is the concern for me. That opening goal by George Ott, great finish by George Ott. But how does Jalil Regay allow him to shoot on the edge of the box just watching him do it? You can't give Ott 5 yards like that on the edge of the box. That's his bread and butter. A lot of errors in their game. Diego Cooper had such a poor game. I think, if you're the Green Gully coaching staff, you probably wish he got sent off a lot earlier than he did. It was a really bad performance. Turned the ball over every time he got it. And I thought he played well in the first 2 games as well. He was just really off it on Saturday afternoon. Michael Weir coming off at halftime didn't help them. Luka Romic, yes, he's got a little bit of NPL experience, but didn't have the greatest season for Port Melbourne last year. I don't know, really stupid errors. Even that Fornaroli free kick at the end of the game, when you watch that back and you see Verndl where he was standing for the wall, they had the wall and then the gap and then Verndl covering the post, how do you allow Trojczewski to come next to you and just push you out of the way? And that's where the ball's gone. Really poor defending. I thought every goal they conceded was poor defending. I'll give credit to Jonathan Germano because, yes, he went with a similar lineup but brought Valentini in and kind of played Fornaroli a little bit off George Ott. It wasn't he wasn't playing on the wing or as the 9. George Ott was the 9 and Fornaroli a bit off him probably as like a 10 sort of, but I don't think he's got the legs to play as a 10. So kind of looked like a 4-4-2, but it wasn't. So he did tinker with things and it worked for him because they had a lot more freedom. Trojczewski and Towns were a lot more creative on the ball, especially going forward. They looked, they're back to their best, both of them. So he did tinker with things and, maybe it will take them time to find the right formula. I don't think they were that convincing in the game. I just thought Green Gully were absolutely shithouse in that game. So I wouldn't be getting too excited if I was Avondale. Green Gully, mate, you're dead to me. You are dead to me. I have sold every stock I had in you. I don't care what you do from here. I don't care if you win the league from here. I don't care anymore. I've given up. I've given up like your players have. It's just, I think in the season preview we said if they don't make the top 6, it is a massive failure. And I know what they're going to do. They're going to point to, we've got injuries. Nathan Symes, the striker they signed's injured. Matt Crooks is injured. This guy's injured. Yui Ahmed, this, that. It's the same shit last year too. Oh, he was injured. This guy was injured. That guy was injured. This guy was injured. Either look at your training methods, sign players that don't break down, or find a better squad balance where you've got players that can come in and do a job. Because consistent injuries to 2 different playing squads over 2 years, that's not a coincidence. So, yeah, not much more to say about Green Gully. Having said that, after that 5-0 loss to Dandenong City last year, they went and beat Melbourne Knights 3-0 the following week. So, good luck to Hume City this week, who they're playing. But, yeah, it's not good. I don't like...
Now it all makes sense. 3-0 they beat Melbourne. Now I get it. Now
just not good. Credit to Avondale, but I don't think it's Avondale's back. They've got still a lot to work on. It's just they played against a very, very poor Green Gully team.
If only someone could have warned you to not place too many of your stocks in a particular football club before the season started.
I know what it feels like now, Lachie. They've burnt two of us now.
Look, to be fair, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that occasionally things said on this podcast can ruffle feathers, right? But what I will also remind you is, yeah, okay, I might be feeling a little bit better about the fact I said Green Gully won't make the finals. I also tipped one correct result this week, okay? The same guy who said... this is the same guy who said last week Bruno Fornaroli and Georgies shouldn't be starting together. They scored 3 goals. They scored 3 goals this week. So if you ever get upset about something we say, just remember that that's also what's happening. Like, this... Anyway. Disappointing stuff for Green Gully. It will be again, Green Gully is like a Groundhog Day club. I swear. It's like everything that happens has happened before. You've seen it all occur previously. Because I look at this game between Green Gully and Hume this week, and I know Hume City are coming off the back of a win, but I look at that game almost exactly as I looked at the game against Avondale and thought, wow, this is a game that neither side wants to lose. Both of them have to win. I swear that everything that happens with this team has happened in the past. I'm like Neo in the Matrix, like the cat, the green and white cat has walked past the doorway 1,000 times, and I'm just shaking, Nick.
Can you imagine they win 3-0 this week?
They probably will.
For those that have seen the show Dark on Netflix, it's deja vu. It's all happening. The past is the future, the present, and the now. But Lachie, I'll save this probably more so for later, but this is just going to give you a little bit of suspense for later on when we get to predictions time. Because, you said Green Gully or Hume City. So my question to you is, I've got the music ready and queued up. Now, Green Gully or Hume City? Have a think about it, and we'll get your pick and stick later on.
All right.
We asked Fornaroli or Ott last week, and Germano said "Por qué los dos?"
Oh, look, the draw is still an option. There's always a third. There's always a third way. I mean, the thing is, in a season of NPL Victoria, you are allowed to have like a put a line through it game, right? Like, and Michael Weir comes off at halftime, like he's one of the best keepers in the league. This, in any given other week, I'd be, you could say it's just a put a line through it game. We weren't at the races, things got away from us sort of game. The problem is that Green Gully had that game the week before, Like, I still think this team is way better than 0-0-3, no points to start the season. I don't think they're in any danger of relegation or anything like that. And they'll probably end up exactly where they've been in the last few seasons. But it can't keep going on like this, but somehow it can. Nick,
I think they've called the authorities on you there, mate. Can hear the sirens coming in the back there. We're going to have to let you go. You have to go answer to you.
I've been done for NPL Victoria fraud, and I have to say it was 6 years in the making.
They've picked up on you finally working out the NPL Victoria matrix about Green Gully's performances every year. This is the way it starts. This is the way it turns around, and you've worked out the matrix.
Yeah, they people in the early days, Nick, they famously hated Jesus because he told the truth. So we'll just leave we'll leave it at that.
And next Sunday, we'll see the Lachie push the boulder out of the way as he comes back to the NPL Victoria podcast.
I feel like Green Gully are carrying the boulder like Sisyphus.
Sisyphus up the mountain.
That's who I'm thinking of. Well. Let's move on from Avenger Parker. A much needed win for Avondale. Plenty for them to build on in the weeks ahead. Shout out Bruno Fornaroli. I love that guy so much.
Our Golden Boot prediction is still on.
Yeah. Kieran Bramwell, hurry up, buddy. I'm going to need you to keep pace with Bruno, please. Anyway, what was I saying about fraudulent takes? Speaking of fraudulent, we all thought that Altona were a dead cert to win against South Melbourne this weekend at Paisley Park. And after they took the lead through Amon Sordo in the first half from the penalty spot, that was looking pretty good against a not totally despondent, but certainly depleted South Melbourne side. Ivka, in the end, South Melbourne, despite playing literally the day before, found a way to rally and take a huge 3 points at Paisley Park.
Huge 3 points is an understatement. Everyone had written South off for good reason. There's playing a game the night before, and playing a game straight. With some players were involved in that squad in that Friday night game. So to do what they did, it's remarkable. Regardless if it was against Altona Magic, who a lot of people have tipped to get relegated, including all of us. Lachie. Sorry, not you. You've tipped them to stay up. I bet you're.
And what a genius prediction that's looking like.
I just take my hat off to Sinisha. I had question marks on him when he got the job, probably for good reason. Didn't have much of a coaching pedigree, but he's definitely proven me and a lot of people wrong. The amount of preparation that he would have put into for Friday and then Saturday as well. And then I saw him at the bloody Greek Festival on Sunday, representing the club. The guy doesn't stop. Unbelievable effort to manage that whole situation and come out of it with 6 points in 2 days. Unbelievable achievement. And those finishes by Bernarda in that 2-minute burst, especially the second goal, some goals by Bernarda. That's the kind of guy you want in your team when your backs are against the wall. He's the one that's going to step up and get you the points, which he did. I thought Pope and Leach in the middle of the park gave him a lot of energy as well. And look, it's hard to say, but you would say that Almazi red card probably did change the flow of the game and probably stuffed up Altona's chances, but what a missed opportunity for Altona. Seriously, they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't come away from this game with 3 points. It was still not a bad South team, but Altona should be beating them in the way the game played out. So they'll be kicking themselves big time. Altona, huge missed opportunity. They need to get as many points as they can. But South, they'll be loving life. That was one that they probably thought that they weren't going to get any points out of. But they got the maximum points out of it. They would have been over the moon with a draw, yet alone all 3 points. So congratulations to them, the whole coaching staff, the whole playing group. It was a huge week for them. Probably benefited from one of the games getting postponed. But still, nonetheless, to come away with the 3 points, huge effort.
And would you believe, not the first time that South Melbourne have played 2 games 2 days apart. April 3rd and April 4th, 1996, according to Paul Mavridis. And across those 2 games, they won undefeated as well. 1-1 draw with Heidelberg, then beat Canberra City 6-2 on Easter long weekend. And on the third day Jesus rose. On the third day, South Melbourne made it to the Greek Festival. They both had equally good weekends. But Nick, it really is such a frustrating one for Altona to have dropped. If they had have just lost the game normally, it'd still be annoying given the circumstances, but not the end of the world. But to have led in this game and then to cough it up from a position of advantage from a team that last year was pretty solid defensively as well is frustrating. And it felt like a couple of, clumsy moments just counted against them. Like the second yellow for Liram Elmazi, whether it was for the red card or whether it was for the handball or for the sort of outstretched leg that knocked over Charlie Leach. The handball, I think, if it was the second yellow for that, I feel like it was a little unfortunate. But again, it was just a bit of a clumsy, sort of ungainly sequence that really didn't need to happen. And I think there are a couple of instances where midfielders and defenders maybe overcommitted in moments they should have. I think Garang Aru was guilty of that a couple of times in midfield, even though I think he's a good player. And again, we didn't see full vision of it because the camera work was a little bit behind the play for the second goal. Great finish from Bernarda, but the defending in the lead up to it, the way it bounced off an Altona Magic head with 2 players contesting sort of seemingly for the same ball, that there'll be kicking themselves over a couple of moments that really swung this game back in South's favour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no shame in losing against South Melbourne. And, I mean, you've got to give, as we said, give credit to South Melbourne for where it is. But I think, as we spoke about, just the circumstances, the context of them playing 24 hours earlier with a weakened team, a lot of under-23s in there, a sprinkling of their top players, and being at home as well, they would have been really hoping that they could have seen this one out and come away with 3 points, especially as we spoke about, them being one of the favourites to be in and amongst that relegation battle this season. But yeah, you can't help but look back and think that the red card did swing things, because you know that after that, Bernardo really got going and scored those 2 goals in a matter of minutes. But yeah, they'd be kicking themselves. They'd be really frustrated. I know last week it's so hard to go to Jack Edwards Reserve and win, but they were leading in that game as well, and they went on to lose. And today as well, last week as well, you know, leading in that game, went to get nothing from it. But I still think there are enough positive signs from Altona, holistically, from the first 3 games to kind of go, they're going to be a lot better than I think we all anticipated. But these are the sort of points that when you're looking again, you know, I spoke about this after the Hume game, that every team would circle the games that you look at, and you look at the fixture and go, these are the games we've got to get points in. You think in this one, when you look at that South were playing in the middle of their Melbourne hub of the OFC Pro League, that they would have probably at least circled, okay, we've got to go for a win. We've got to try and get 3 points here, or at absolute minimum, at least get a point, depending on what squad South Melbourne roll out. So they'd be disappointed in that from that sense. But I think they were probably helped. I mean, by this part of it as well. I mean, South the night before were able to play 12 players. They only made 1 sub against South Island United, and that was probably helped by the fact that they were able to kick ahead after going behind. And maybe, I don't know if that was by plan, that they were always just going to go through only 12 players and go with that 11, and James Lachie being the only one to come off the bench, and he played 45 again against Altona. But I wonder if that game was a bit tighter, whether South would have had a few more of those guys come off the bench against South Island United, and maybe that would have helped Altona a little bit. I know it's a lot of whataboutism and everything like that, but at the end of the day, they got through it perfectly. It was masterfully planned. I think, as you mentioned, Ivka, I think as much as they were frustrated the game against Tahiti got postponed, because it's another game that's going to be kicked back later in, which is going to hurt them down the track, I think that it kind of helps just get a few more bodies a little bit, you know, get a little bit more rest into some bodies, get a few more guys ready for Altona, be able to sort of spread out the players a bit more. And now they go into the game against Solomon Kings. I mean, by the time that people are listening to this tonight, at home with the Matildas, then to Bentley on Saturday, where they'll have a little bit of extra leeway to play around with, where they can have a bit more of a mix between the 2 squads, and not be, I guess, I don't want to say as dramatic, but probably not to have the full extent of, you know, as many of the under-23 representatives getting the chunk of minutes, but maybe having a little bit more of those, you know, tried and tested starting 11 players, maybe backing up and playing a couple days later, and maybe 45 minutes here and 45 minutes there. But I think going forward for South, the big thing is going to be is, I think, especially in these next few hubs, is when it's going to get interesting. Because when they have to go on the road and have to travel to the Solomon Islands and travel to Fiji, considering I believe they're going to be in Fiji while they play Preston, what do they do squad-wise? How many players get on the plane and go to Honiara and go to Suva and then go to Auckland for the Circuit 6? So I just wonder if there's going to be a real focus on South trying to lock in a top 4 spot in the OFC Pro League, and then maybe start to take a little bit of a smaller squad in around to keep guys ready for the game against Preston. Lachie, Ivka, you're both chomping at the bit. Someone jump in.
Nick, you can probably confirm, but with the OFC squad, that's locked at whatever they've registered, isn't it? And they can't say, oh, well, we're going to Fiji, we're a top 4 team, we've got Preston this week, and send our Resi squad.
I'm not 100% certain, but I believe so, because they haven't really changed too much. But I'm not 100% certain, but I can fact check that for you.
I'm pretty sure that it's locked in, so they can't. Yes, obviously they can rest the big boys and whatever in that next hub if they've come out with a win against Solomon Kings and got enough points to be in that top 4. But still, they still have to send a squad there and the travel and all that. Even, so you mentioned that some of the guys didn't come off the bench on Friday and started on the Saturday. They still had to warm up, go to the ground. That's still taxing in itself, even if you're not playing. And then back it up the next day, warm up, play. That's a lot of energy required to do all that.
Nick, I think the solution is staring us in the face by the way you framed the question. You're saying they've got to play Preston while they're in Fiji. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, take the game to Fiji. Let's bring 6,000 people to one resort and play the game there. We will have the best week of our lives. I am all for that. I am all aboard.
Do you know what I'm hearing? Do you know what I'm hearing? With the roadworks going on at the Veneto Club, it can't happen right now. NPL Victoria Gather Round comes to Fiji.
Yes, we'll have it in Nandi. That nothing would make me happier than NPL football in Fiji. Like, that is the best of both worlds ever.
We'll
sort the track.
But in terms of actually getting to the ground, they've got to get you out of the pool bar, Lachie. You'll be guts up in the resort.
Well, I'm gonna have to get myself out of the Green Gully Penitentiary first before I do that. But that's made me very happy. South Melbourne would be very happy to have taken 3 points from Paisley Park, but not as happy as Caroline Springs George Cross, who after one of the greatest wins in their history against Green Gully in the Maltese derby, have backed it up with a come-from-behind win at home against Dandenong Thunder. A Leo Marzi masterclass, an outside-of-the-foot assist for Justin Spateri's goal to equalise before the break, and then a spellbinding strike to take the lead that bounced over the line and then out and was counted as a goal despite the protestations of Andrew Withers. Oh, this is like the heady, the halcyon, as close as we've been to the halcyon years of Caroline Springs George Cross in some time, Ivka.
Yeah, thanks for throwing to me, Lachie.
Are you allowed in? Are you banned from City Vista yet, Ivka?
I couldn't give a fuck, to be honest. Drop your comments. I don't
That's
care.
the answer of a man who's clearly never partaken in food from the bistro.
You think these comments get to me? I don't care, mate. Look, good performance by George Cross. This was probably the first proper test that they had. It was the previous week against Green Gully as a derby game, whatever. It's easy to get up for that one. I was curious to see how they would go in this game, and they delivered. I think in the first half, Dandenong Thunder was the better team. They created a lot more chances. But you're right, Lachie. Leo Marzi's changed that game. That assist for that first goal is sensational, the way he put the ball into the area and bamboozled that Dandenong Thunder defence, really. Justin Spateri getting his first start after Geordie Tucker got sent off the week before. Great start to life for him in the starting 11 for George Cross. I thought Ross Vasiliadis had a really good performance as well. The thing I took out of this game, and these Georgies haters, they're going to fucking love this one. If the Dandenong Thunder team from last season played in the same way this game played out tactically on Saturday night, they would have won that game 4-2, 4-1. They just lack that killer instinct that they had last season, especially Yuki Yoshida. I think we underestimated how big of a loss he is for this team. We knew he was a big loss, but how big of a loss? I just thought every area that they struggled in on the game on Saturday was reflective in the players that they lost from last season. The way that game panned out, I watched the full 90 minutes. I just thought, if this Dandenong Thunder team from last year was playing, they would have won this comfortably. So take nothing away from George Cross. They were playing against the Dandenong Thunder team of 2026, and they beat them fair and square and deserved the 3 points. So a little bit of concern for Dandenong Thunder, especially when they're travelling this season, might struggle a little bit away from home. But yeah, great start for George Cross. That's the win that they probably wanted in their pocket. Another hard-working performance, disciplined performance, very organised. There's a lot of positives to take out from their performances. Am I completely sold on them yet? No, I'm not, because I've seen this story before from promoted teams or teams that have been tipped to struggle and end up struggling and start off a little bit better than everyone thought and then fall off the wayside. If you look at the ladder from last season after round 3, South Melbourne was on exactly the same points as George Cross are at the moment, and their season got derailed very, very quickly. Yes, they rescued it in the end, but it could have been a lot worse than what it was. So, Georgie haters, don't get caught up in the hype that you're on top of the table after 3 games, and just need to keep a lid on it. And if you keep putting in performances like you have in the first 3 rounds, you will be safe in this league and might even contend for a final spot. But it's still early days, and when that momentum of being promoted and all that starts wearing off, that's when we can see if this team can do it on a consistent basis.
Now I'm jumping in here reticently because I can see Nick Dubano holding his phone in a way that implies that a musical gag is on the way. So I'm going to just get in front of that by asking you, Nick, because it dovetails quite nicely into what I want to talk about. Is it possible Dandenong Thunder were put off by the song selection? Because the walkout music at Georgies was Tsunami by Martin Garrix, which is a very different sort of tone and style to Thunderstruck. Was it possible they were walking out and thought, no, none of this electronic sort of new age crap? Put Akadaka, put Akadaka on. We're not walking out.
Not just Akadaka on once. It's Akadaka on loop for like 5-10 minutes before kickoff. It's a loop serenade that goes on for minutes on minutes. No, I had a gag lined up, but I realised I don't know if it was going to fall on it's a real if you know sort of Maltese gag. But to give perhaps a little bit of context, what I was going to go with was, do you guys remember when Malta? Because Ivka made the point about that the comments he doesn't feel a thing with the comments. Do you guys remember when Malta were playing and their national anthem was about to be played and then Linkin Park Numb was played instead?
Yes,
I think it's just apt timing that Ivka's feeling numb towards the Georgies comments while
now if you needed Caroline Springs a recommendation for what to play as your alternative walkout music, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Just to throw everyone off as everyone's all standing there, you get ready to play the Maltese national anthem, but you throw everyone off and you start playing some Linkin Park. But no, I think no, go on. No, you haven't got anything. Okay. Yep. All right. Yeah. No. I was just going to say, I mean, what a goal from Lats Mathian. Sorry. Absolute bomb. I think they've found a player there, Dandy Thunder. I think that's one real positive for them. And also, like, just on them, like, they really were banging on the door late. Like, they were putting Georgies under pressure late in that contest. So I think for them, they would look at those moments and be like, all right, just a couple of defensive lapses that led to the goals, particularly probably not closing down that Leo Marzi play that led to the second goal where they probably had to just clear their lines. I just need to be a little bit more ruthless in front of goals. Just some little moments there cost them in both halves. But yeah, I think they'd be quite disappointed that now they've started this season with 1 out of a possible 9 to start, considering that they probably could make an argument they should have more points to their names. They've been in every single game. They just haven't had more points to their name. But Georgies, I think this is as close as you can possibly get to the most ideal start possible. 7 points out of a possible 9 on your return to the top flight. It is happy, happy days for Ivka's boys out at Fraser Rise.
Just on Matiang, he is very, very good. I was told by some Danny Thunder sources that he was one to watch when they signed him, and they are definitely right on him. He's very good, and he reminds me a lot of Bull Juach in the way he plays, with the pace and the power. I don't think he'll be hanging around Dandenong Thunder for much past 2026. I think a few of the big dogs will come in for him because he's got all the makings to be a top quality player in this league.
Certified baller.
in a desperate attempt to claw back some of my credibility, I want to put out there on record that in my old job, as a person who used to edit NPL highlights across the country, I remember I was there when Lut Matiyang was scoring for Florida Athena back in 2022, and I remember thinking at the time, he's a pretty good player. So very, very glad to see him. Ivka, it is funny though that you've decided to critique Georgies again, despite the win. It's like every step that they take is just another mistake to you. I can't work it out.
Don't rattle the cage.
Mate,
That's the tip.
Georgies
Look at
are
these
tired
guys.
of being.
Where were they last year, the year before?
They're feeling so faithless. They're lost under the surface because of your critique. They don't know what you're expecting of them. Seriously.
That's all right.
Can't you see that you're smothering me? For God's sake.
Just know I'll be watching every week, Georgie boys.
No, that's the police, Ivka. Watching every step they take, that's the police. Okay. Well, I'd love to be moving on from the musical themes, but we're heading to St Albans, so we can't. Because
We can. We'll talk about the winners of this, talking about a musical segment a bit later.
Okay, well, we're not going to move on from there anyway, because
the
jukebox was playing some very sad tunes on the hill at Churchill Reserve, because St Albans, despite a positive, red-hot start, a goal so quick that even the live stream wasn't prepared to capture it, got them off to a good start, only for Oakley to break a very barren run at Churchill Reserve and run out 3-1 winners. But gents, great win for Oakley, disappointing for St Albans, but I want to talk about a masterclass, a debut masterclass, the likes of which we may have never seen nor see again. And it wasn't from any of the 22 players starting on the field. It was from none other than former Bulleen Lions defender, former Melbourne Knights defender, Ivan Gergic, on the microphone, taking split of the lead play-by-play commentary.
Kudos.
We might be out of a job, gents. And not just because Ivan Gergic has proved himself a very good commentator, but wow, what a stunning turn of events. And I thought Oakley weren't bad as well.
Well, just to peel behind the curtain, just to sum it up, is play-by-play commentary is very, very difficult. And he nailed it on the first attempt, which is just incredible work. Commentary in general isn't easy. And I've got to say, if you didn't know it was his first game, guys, you'd think he's been doing this for, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. As you said, guys, kudos to him. Great knowledge. Really looking forward to hearing more of him throughout the season. But he is the second member of his family to be part of the commentary fraternity. His dad provided great comments into the effects mic every Monday at Bulleen. But it's good. Maybe we have to get them both on a game together. Maybe that's the next step.
You're onto something there, Nick. That's a great idea.
We might need a dump button for the co-commentator.
Well, this is also just one more little anecdote. We'll talk about Bulleen soon. But yesterday when I got to the Veneto Club talking about Ivan Gergic, I was talking with the cameraman, Nathan Sack, who he said to me, he goes, it's a little bit sad today. You're not going to have a co-commentator. And I thought, no, well, Lockie's been gone for about a year. Lockie's been on the other side of the border. But he's like, no, our man who's been next to us all those years when Ivan's been playing at Bulleen, and it was Ivan's dad, who usually is right next to the effects mic, providing some great little comments. Lo and behold, the true 6:01 a.m. that he is, I look out of the box at halftime, and there he is. He's still there. He's at the Ven. He's rain, hail, or shine. He's watching the games. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a Gergic squared broadcast at some point in the future. Could we get a Gergic cubes? Could we get Michael involved as well?
I know you're champing at the bit, Nick, to talk about VPL 1, but Ivan, if he wasn't already playing at another club as he is for Altona City, just on the basis of he's got more commentary in the future, I'll tell you that for nothing. He has won the breakup with Bulleen, but far and away he has won the breakup with Bulleen. It was a stunning performance in the commentary booth. It was also a rousing display, Ivka, from the Cannons, who did well. It would have been very easy to be shaky after going behind at a ground where they've struggled in recent years, going behind so early, but a very, very solid fight back and second half display from the Cannons.
Yeah, second half display. I thought they struggled in the first 30 minutes of the game. It was scrappy. It was very disjointed from both teams. A lot of loss of possession in that first half from both teams. But Joe Guest, that's why he's such a great player, because that was probably a chance out of nothing, and then just to equalise literally on half time. St Albans took the kickoff and the ref blew for half time. So big hammer blow for St Albans. I imagine Cam Watson would have been losing his absolute shit at half time to concede at the time of the game that they did. Because they were doing okay, St Albans. As you were watching it, they took the early lead, and that would have rattled Oakley, because they would have been aware that they haven't won there for 3 or 4 years. And they would have been like, oh shit, here we go again. And St Albans made it a bit of a scrappy game, but very poor second half performance from St Albans, and just a professional display from Oakley. That second goal, Connor Hampson really should have just given up and not got into the ball, but got there and played it across the face of goal, and a great finish from Alex Salmon. He's looking good for that golden boot, boys. My man Salmon this year. Forget Mikael Platt on the other side. Didn't tip him this year for good reason. And Alex Salmon just delivers the goods again. Oakley, another 3 goals for them. Coming back from 1-0 down as well, like they did the previous week. So it's a grind for Oakley. They work their way into a game and they end up out muscling you, outrunning you, and just creating chances and making sure that they come home with the goods. So very good performance by Oakley in that second half. St Albans a bit disappointed with the way the game kind of played out. They had a lot more control of it in that first half and just fell away in the second half. Not too much concern for St Albans. They've had a couple of tough weeks, Preston and Oakley back to back, similar to last year with the way the fixture list rolled out, where you went on a stretch of very, very difficult games against the big dogs in consecutive weeks, and then it eases up a little bit. So disappointing to lose at home for St Albans, yes, but not too much concern.
I guess the only issue there is that they actually did quite well in some of the bigger games last year. Like they got a lot of surprise points against the top 6 teams. So it is fine, generally speaking, to be dropping these games. And I'm not critiquing them for it, don't get me wrong. But if this is going to happen, it's got to come with better performances against the teams that they should be beating, Nick. And I don't know if you have any points about the game itself or about St Albans before I move on to the next thing I want to move on to.
You mentioned that my exact point where I was going with that, Lachie, is that at the end of the day, if they're going to drop these games against the top teams when they actually play pretty well, they have to balance that out, and it all starts next week against Altona. That's a big game this week for them. Having seen the Zapruder film of Nick Cook's goal, nice finish. Really nice finish. A player that, again, has enormous ability. We saw it at Western United in their youth academy. And now his first full preseason at St Albans. He looked really good and a really nice finish for him. So off the mark at Dinamo. And just one last one. Liston Diaz, guys. Far out, he's a player. Like, we're seeing Liston Diaz fit and firing this season as a starter. And he's going to be right up there as one of the best in this competition this year.
I think he picked the right club, Liston Diaz. Chris Taylor's football suits him perfectly. Those runs in behind, the creative freedom he's got on the wing, just suits him perfectly. He's fitted right into that environment, and he'll have a very, very good season at Oakley.
Yeah, it feels like a really good fit. St Albans, they did make Oakley work for it in this game, particularly in that first half. And Nick, you could tell that it was hard fought 3 points. And and maybe much more of an uplifting performance for Oakley than the sort of struggle to get over the line that they stodged their way through against Altona, because nothing was more instructive to me than the post-match song. The video of the post-match song. We were a little bit critical last week that it was a bit of a lackluster rendition. There was a bit of a half-arsery about the song. No such troubles this week, Nick. That was full gusto. Give us your tale of the tape.
Well, it all starts with Joe Guest, right? And it always starts with Guesty.
The tone setter.
He's the captain. He's the tone setter. At the end of the day, he's the conductor. You in those moments when it gets to the club song, I know it's been a long 90 minutes, you're tired, you got to sing the song, you just want to get changed, have a shower, but it's an exciting moment to get around your mates and sing the song together. But you got to get kick-started from someone. It's like again, sorry to go back to footy. Footy's around the corner. Our steel side bottom always starts the song for Collingwood, and he's the one that sets the tone with the big way. I mean, Joe Guest, in the same way, sets the tone. And he was up and about, and that became contagious throughout the whole room. It seems like the good news is I don't think they needed the board with the lyrics this time around, because I know last time, Lachie, I think that they had the lyrics up on the wall.
And doesn't that just speak volumes to the club culture, Nick? That the new signings already feel like they've got it down pat. That the lyrics don't even need to be in the dressing rooms anymore.
Yep. They spent the week. They spent the week learning the lyrics, which is great. And they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, quite literally. And it's great to see. But again, Joe Guest leading the way. But it was good to see that little bit more exuberance, a little more exciting. I wonder if that's something for being on the road. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. I reckon this week, guys. But I'm excited if they beat Melbourne City next week in Casey. I think it's going to be an interesting watch, because Casey, it's a long drive. I know that they're in Oakley. It's a bit shorter than some bits. It's not a long drive. It's on a Sunday going into the long weekend. So I wonder if they're going to be quite excited coming off the back of that, and going to be quite pumped if they get a win against Melbourne City. That's just something to keep an eye on for next week on the Oakley socials.
It was a massage table slapping rendition, a very well-earned 3 points for Oakley. It was a far more hard-fought affair on the scoreline, at least, out at Nasiol Stadium. Hume City getting a 1-0 win over the Bentley Greens. Ivka, tight on the scoreline. Was that reflective of the actual game itself?
Definitely not. I think Hume will be scratching their heads at how they didn't win that game 5 or 6-0. I thought they absolutely dismantled Bentley on Saturday afternoon, in particular in that first half. The amount of chances that they created, it was just a wave after wave after wave of attack. I issued a public apology to Melbourne City before. I'll issue a slight apology to Hume, only because of the opposition that they've faced the last couple of weeks, a week in South and a pretty bang average Bentley. But I don't think they're as bad as I initially thought. When you actually look at their team, and I watched it closely on Saturday, their midfield is actually very good. Burkhard Kurda in there, Steve White. It's a very good combination. Josh O'Kane as well. It's a pretty good midfield that they've got. I thought Aaron Calvar was very, very good in the heart of defence. It's another great signing that they made late. Oldfield as well was comfortable in goals. So I don't think they're as bad as I thought they were, but they're definitely not as good as they think they are. That's for sure. With all the statements that came out in the preseason that everyone came to him to win the championship, that ain't going to happen. But though I think they've got enough to be okay in this league, so your tip to relegate them is probably a little bit off the mark, Lachie. After what I saw on Saturday, if they can finish those chances that they're creating, they'll be okay. Bentley, on the other hand, were shithouse. It was a very bad performance. Did not look like getting anything out of that game, and our concerns of them being able to score goals in this competition is a very genuine concern. They just don't really have that attacking threat to trouble a lot of teams in this league. Yes, they scored 2 the week before against against Bentley, but one was from a corner and one was just a worldie that you're not going to get every week. And Petratos put himself in the headlines the week before, so now obviously the following week he's going to get shut down. Average performance from Bentley. Didn't help that they went down to 10 men, made it even harder. But at the end of the day, it was only a 1-0 loss, so they'll take that with the way they played, because it definitely should have been a lot more.
Yeah, a good result for Hume on a big day as well. Obviously, they had that news of the passing of Khalid Kurdar as well, one of the founding fathers of Hume. His son, Berkan Kurdar's dad, was there, sort of did the coin toss pre-match, and of course Berkan got the assist for what was ultimately the winning goal. So a nice moment, and good for them to send off his memory in the best possible way, Nick. For Bentley, you talked earlier about how perhaps at some point George Cross will get you get that post-promotion buzz when the coming into the NPL Victoria is exciting and fresh and invigorating before the reality brick to the face eventually hits you at some point in the 26 rounds. Was this Bentley Green's reality brick?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, look, they've had the full mixed bag throughout the first 3 rounds, so it's actually really hard to get a gauge on what Bentley's going to be this season in terms of where they'll finish. I think we know what they're going to be identity-wise. They're going to be hard to break down. They're going to hit and transition. And those questions around where the goals were going to come from so far are still well and truly there. To only have, 4 shots to 20, I think was what Sofa Score was saying in terms of the amount of attempts, even before going down to 10. It's really disappointing that they didn't take it to Hume a lot more. Coming off the back of that win against Avondale, where they're up and about, they have a great chance to go on the road, get their first road win of the season against a team in Hume that, it was a good win against South Melbourne the week before, but still some questions because, of course, South were playing a weakened 11, and they didn't really lay a glove. And Hume City, on the other hand, as you guys mentioned, should have won by a lot more and were very impressive. The one thing I want to mention about Hume, the good sign, they're getting the best out of Adisu Bayu. It seems he's starting to hit the scoreboard. It's good to see that a player who does have a lot of ability but has had a lot of injury concerns over the last few years, and during his stints at Green Gully, and obviously we saw a little bit of him at Preston in the Australian Championship. He's starting to find some form, and he's starting to find the back of the net. So they've made these sort of like signings like Bayu and Calver, players that, perhaps are, they've flown under the radar a little bit, but could be real nice signings for them in the long run. So there'll be bigger tests coming up for Hume. I mean, we'll talk about it soon, that game against Green Gully, because if they can win that and go 3 wins in a row, even though it is against a weakened Green Gully team, they're taking on a Green Gully team after an Ivka spray, and that's arguably the most dangerous team in the NPL. So, no, in all seriousness, you'd always say beware the wounded animal, and you'd expect Green Gully, if they don't get up for any game, they won't get up for any game after a big loss like that to respond. So, a good result for Hume, 2 wins in a row, good response after that loss against Altona in round 1, and I think they'd be quite pleased with how things are going in the first 3 weeks.
Final question, Ivka, before we head down the pyramid. Do you have any idea what was going on with that red card for Bentley?
No idea. I was hoping the NPL referee expert on Twitter with the Yanni Zizis profile picture was going to provide some clarity, but he couldn't work it out either. It looked like the red card was shown to Brendan White. I think it was shown to Brendan White, and then backtracked. Even when you watch the incident, you can't work out whether it was White that scooped the ball or if it was Boffy's hand that touched it. Regardless, whoever got sent off deserved to get sent off. It was a definite red card. Just wasn't sure who it was given to.
It's the who was it for Arsenal, Lachie, back in the day with the case of mistaken Kieran Gibson?
It was
Alex
Kieran
Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Gibson, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I was going to go that, we've seen a lot of innovation in NPL Victoria. We are the trailblazer for the 3 teams relegated in a 14-team league. Is this the debut of a sort of Hunger Games style volunteer system for red cards. You know, you just Michael Boffey, just I volunteer as tribute. I will be sent off in my goalkeeper's place. Yeah. So not that it worked out too well for Bentley, but Michael Boffey, your sacrifice is noted. Let's get down to VPL 1, the Victorian Premier League. The most recent game was last night. FC Bulleen Lions going down to the Redbacks. What a win, Nick Debano, for the Dorsi Rosso, the Redbacks, the famous Italian club.
The Rossoneri. The Rossoneri on VPL 1. Oh, my goodness. The way that, you take 1 week away from the podcast and you guys just went absolute. Oh, unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, where do you guys want to start? I guess is the question. Do you want to start talking about Eltham or do you want to start talking about Bulleen?
Let's talk about my man. I'm claiming him. I don't care who else claims him. I'm claiming him. Josh Dennett. My God.
Yeah. What a player.
What a player. Not just his throws. We'll get to his throws in a second. He's actually a good footballer. Scored an incredible goal, but his throws are I said it last week. They're next level. I'm watching the game last night. There's a throw he takes from the defensive half, and he launches it to the striker's foot.
Do you know what's so funny is when you're there and you're actually watching him, and you expect as a commentator or just those moments, right? Anything past halfway is the Josh Dennett zone, right? Like that's the Dennett zone. You expect anything there is when he's going to launch it. So when that throw in was given, just on the other side, I thought, it's going to be a classic, just long up the line or throw him back, recycle possession, go around the other side. But then when you see him walking over and he's just launched it, you're like, what am I witnessing here? Because usually, the Mikkola zone is, you'd say, a quarter of the pitch, or about a third of the pitch. But the Dennett zone is, we're looking at 2/3 of the pitch here, guys. Like, if they got a throw in late in the game and they need a goal, but the throw in is, on the other side of halfway, they don't have to worry about setting it back to the keeper to go along. Just Joshy, just launch it, mate. But he only takes like 2 or 3 steps, which is incredible.
And keep in mind, it was pissing down rain last night as well.
And, you can dry the ball as much as you want. It was a slippery pill out there. But, no, Eltham, so impressed. Look, they don't play, the quote-unquote beautiful, aesthetically pleasing possession football, but they are going to bully teams off the park this year. They are very clear in their identity and they are extremely functional in the way that they play. They are fast, they are powerful, and they will bully you if you give them a chance to get on top. The way that they hit Bulleen straight from kickoff, like Bulleen scored straight from kickoff against Port Melbourne the week before and then were dealt that, not closing down on Collins, opening up the opportunity for him and smashes it into the back of the net. And Eltham, once they got comfortable, they were able to get into their set. They're very organised defensively. Bulleen had a lot of the ball. They couldn't get through. They have a lot of just big physical players in there, Eltham, that are very hard to knock off the ball when you're going one-on-one with them. And ultimately, going back the other way, they have players that can hurt you. I mean, Billy Romas, big bad Billy Romas, in 2026, back in VPL 1, scoring goals like that. It's like we're doing the time warp against his former team. What a goal that was, by the way. A costly turnover to set that play up. But to still, take on the players, twist one way, come back the other, and beat Wansuk Choi with that finish. Just unbelievable. Bulleen tried to respond after half-time with the changes they made. They had to make those changes to try and chase the game. But again, just the 3 goals they copped were from not closing down in those areas. Leaving guys like Dennett and Collins with a lot of space at the edge of the box, an uncharacteristic error on the edge of the box. Chatting with some of the guys after the game from, Bulleen, like, I don't remember Wansuk Choi actually having to make a save. Eltham were just ruthless with their finishing. Like, there was nothing Choi could do. And when they took the lead, they had a stranglehold on the game, and it never really felt like Bulleen were going to get back into it. So credit to what they're doing. Alan Mulcahy has done a fantastic job with this team, and they're going to be hard for anyone to beat in this league. They are going to be very hard.
What a coincidence that Bulleen conceded 3 goals from not closing down when they've only got one recognised centre-back in their lineup.
Whoa. I thought Nick was going to be the guy doing this, but he's shown some real growth. Look, I'm going to channel my inner Ty from Arsenal Fan TV here, Ivka. It wasn't the best defending from Bulleen, but we mustn't forget, it was raining. Right, it was raining. So on the slippery surface, the artificial pitch, it's just a little bit harder to get your defensive job right when the rain's coming down.
But this is the thing. I actually thought, as much as I think Jamie Wilson is the ultimate Mr. Fix-It, he can play basically. I feel like he's played every position bar goalkeeper in his time in NPL. I actually didn't think he was that bad as a centre back. It's just he's not a centre back. He's a great ball playing midfielder. But you can tell you do lose a lot of that defensive intelligence when you haven't got that second natural centre-back who knows when to step up and get in those moments. I actually thought he was pretty good playing as alongside Marco Bergers. And I thought that Ugandi as well and Reece Moxon actually didn't have bad games as far. I thought Ugandi was their best player. But just in some key moments, they left way too much space for Eltham. And when they go forward and they... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it's not even that, Nick. It's not that he was okay or what. It's that they had a perfectly good centre back already and they gave him the flick. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter now because they.
And now he's commentated games.
Maybe it genuinely doesn't matter. Maybe Jacopo LaRocca heard him talking in the change rooms and said, I got to get rid of this guy now because if not, I'm going to lose him because he's saying, mate, I don't know what to tell you, but I'm going to be commentating the World Cup. Maybe he saw a vision that none of us realised was even possible.
He saw a premonition, basically, of Ivan Gergic in the gantry with David Bashir for the World Cup final this year and was like, you know what? I can't lose him for a month. I need my centre-backs. No. Yeah, very disappointing for Bulleen. A lot of the ball, as I said, but just not able to get in behind that Eltham defence nearly enough to test them. And they need to work out what that best midfield and attack combination is. I thought Connor Bell was quiet. He did get his 3rd goal in 3 games. I think maybe they might need to try and play him a bit more centrally because I thought Finn Harbinson had some moments, but I think that maybe they need to go with the 2 up top in there. We haven't seen the best of Nathan Stamatellis since he's come across. Jamie Mantelis got an assist and was busy when he came on, and I thought had some moments. But I think they're going to need to get on a couple extra sort of creative ball-playing midfielders. Assam Sow was quiet and got dragged at halftime. So was Enzo Campagna. So I just think, Mo Rahimi wasn't in the squad. He's someone they could go to. George Karvunas. This is the thing. They have so much attacking talent. They have so much that really they should be putting Eltham under more pressure. But they just were bullied. And this is something where I think a lot of the talk is about Bulleen after this game, and rightfully so. They're the big club. They're the team that lost at home 3-1 against Eltham. They very rarely lose like this at home. But there should be more chatter about just how impressive of a couple of weeks this has been from Eltham. I don't want to sound like I'm deflecting, but I'm just saying this Eltham team, they are going to be a team that I think this year are going to be battling right up there in that playoff push. And no one will want to come up against them. They're going to be hard to beat at home. They can play hard, and that's the perfect style that you need in this competition. If you can physically overwhelm teams, that goes a very, very long way.
Au contraire, Nick. I think the commentary around Eltham is very positive. I mean, based on what Ivka was saying, it sounds like Josh Dennett wasn't the only person having a massive toss last night, to be honest with you.
No, but I'm just saying, I feel like a lot of the online conjecture has been more so around Bulleen. But I think that as much as Bulleen were poor, and rightfully so, there will be the critics that come out and criticise the performance. It wasn't a good performance yesterday. And they'll be hoping to bounce back off the back of this. And It's a big game against Melbourne Victory next week. Like, that is a massive game given Victory have lost their last two.
Nick, I'm going to let you in a secret. I wasn't actually running cover for Eltham. I just wanted to make the joke about if
I know.
reaction
But
to Josh Dennett.
I'm just saying, I think Eltham are really a bloody dangerous team. So credit to them, credit to the coaching staff, but a lot of a big week coming up for Bulleen on the training field, getting ready for that game against Victory.
Great to see a proud Italian club teaching another proud Italian club a thing or two about playing in VPL 1. Let's get on to the rest of the weekend in this chaos competition. Northcote running out 3-1 winners against a 10-men Langwarrin. On Saturday, the Max Clark Revolution. We're going to have to workshop a terminology for that, but continues as Northcote have won 3 games in a row. Rumours of Brunswick City's demise seemingly overstated as the Mayday game for Nick Kyrgiopoulos, according to some Twitter accounts, against Port Melbourne, saw Brunswick City run out 5-0 winners at Dunstan Reserve against the winless Sharkies, 3 rounds in to VPL 1. Brunswick Juventus getting a good 2-1 win against Melbourne Victory at CB Smith. North Geelong seeing off Melbourne Serbia at Elko Park. And Manningham giving us a bit of a taste of yesteryear, Nick, your old favourite team in NPL 1, showing that they're, even though they've gone back down a peg, that they've kept their chaotic spirit on their return to VPL 1. Not for the right reasons, though. A 6-3 loss to to Western United. Remember that?
Yeah, the team we all said were doomed for relegation have been the great surprise to start this season. 6-3 winners. Mark Leonard with a double. Great to see him back and firing. But Manningham, they made 2 changes before half-time when they were down 3-0 and 3-1, taking off Alan Brandau and George Sitsinaris and bringing on Christian Mladenis and Luke Barfarosh to try and change things up. So something that I guess we'll see from Nick Marinos is he leaves nothing to chance. If there's something he wants to change, he's not going to wait very long. But yeah, so Manningham, look, disappointing result for them. A bit of a come down to earth after the way that they started the season. But Western, very, very impressive. But I think we're forgetting just one game. Just one game. I think we have to go to our man here, Ivka.
I left Melbourne it to Knights. Last for very intentional reasons.
Yeah. Ivka, Melbourne Knights coming from behind.
We're back, baby. We're back. It's a shame you can't see it on the 6-camera Steven Spielberg production.
I was so upset we didn't get.
I'm hearing rumors that the Spielberg, it's been nominated for an Oscar, and it's been cut down in its prime. It's been canned. There's no more 6-camera stream.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can just use 1 camera and start streaming the games. That would be beneficial to a lot of people, considering the games are at 8:30 on a Friday night now at Knights Stadium. That 1 hour makes a huge difference. But saw the highlights package. Good response from going 1-0 down. It's funny the way football works sometimes. Not much can happen in a game. You can see the goal and then straight away the switch is flicked immediately, and within 5 minutes within 9 minutes of going 1-0 down, they're 2-1 in front. So very good response by the Knights. They probably would have dropped their heads a little bit and then got back into the game with a great goal from Darcy Anastovsky, and then Michael Suski got the goal to put them in front, and they were able to hold on. So another good win for the Knights at home against a tough opposition. North Sunshine Derby it was. Hey, haven't seen that for a long time.
Yep.
No, we have not. And look, it is disappointing to see that the feature-length film has disappeared just as quickly as it sprung up. But for those who are disappointed that the film the series has been cancelled before its logical conclusion, I have good news. I'm told that a spin-off series has been commissioned for a couple of seasons, and North Geelong, the 7 cameras are coming up the road to Elko Park for the rest of the year. So there's always a spin-off. You can always pick something out of the wreckage. VPL 2 at Nunawading City started us off on a 3-game Friday night as they won against the Eastern Lions 3-1. Kingston City and Bayside Argonauts with a bit of a Greek handshake as they shared a 0 draw. both definitely Greek. I'm sure about that one. No doubts there. Springvale White Eagles went down 2-1 at home to the Essendon Royals. The Prince, Jordan Adiemi, scoring again. I'll always mention that man. 3-3 chaos between Werribee and Box Hill on Saturday. Malvern City saw off Whittlesea United 2-1. Goulburn Valley Suns with a 5-1 win against Altona City. And I'm just looking to see if our man Ivan Gergic was in the lineup. And curiously, if this is to be believed, he was not. So, coincidence? I don't know.
It's tiring. Commentating's tiring, mate.
It's hard
Very
work.
tiring.
It takes a lot of... Look, that might be the first ever DMP for commentary related. Sorry, mate, I can't play NPL tonight. I'm doing my notes for commentary. Might be the closest we've ever come.
I'm grinding tape on St Albans' 2022 season.
The dog ate my playing kit areas there. And Nick, the game you wanted to talk about.
I'm rewatching St Albans v Oakley from the 2022 seasons where James Tempelkowski and Xander Guy scored and Lachie Flanagan was on commentary.
Sorry, mate. I need to know exactly how many goals Sean Ellis has scored against Melbourne Victory's youth team in the past before the Brunswick game. If that factors in my notes, I won't be able to call the game. Nick,
sorry,
you wanted to touch.
No, go on. Okay, no, go on.
You wanted to touch just quickly on the mother of all comebacks from Keilor Park, who were 2-1 down in the 81st minute, only to score in the 90th and 94th against Moreland City at CB Smith Reserve.
Oh, what a result for Keilor Park. First win in VPL 2, first points in VPL 2. Graham Kelly, after making the move from Essendon Royals with the penalty to get them back into the game. And then only moments later, they get themselves a winner courtesy of Sam O'Halloran. So very impressive result for Keilor Park. But again, I'm still on watch here that Moreland City are still playing at CB Smith Reserve, despite, the fixture saying a few weeks ago that they're going back to Campbell Reserve. I drove past Campbell Reserve the other day. Didn't look very ready for VPL footy. So I don't know if maybe that's a sign of they're just going to be playing games at CB Smith for the year. So Brunswick Juventus, when they thought, finally, it's just us and Faulkner this year, they've got themselves... They're still joined. It's the Barney Gumble meme, at the bar, but Barney's right back. Lachie, what I was going to mention as well is Malvern City are top of the league. So, Gavin Denise's journey of trying to get Malvern City up the ranks to be the biggest Greek club in Australia. They're 3 wins from 3 to start the season. So, a couple of the newly promoted sides been quite impressive.
I'd love to see an odds market on whether Malvern City will become the biggest Greek club or whether Berwick City will become an A-League club. That'll be an interesting race to see which one of those multi-leg parlays hits first there. But the Dog Walkers of Coburg rejoicing as Campbell Reserve is retaken by the four-legged menaces. All right, prediction time in round 4. Of NPL Victoria. Green Gully Soccer Club against Hume City FC. The first game of the weekend, 7:30 kickoff. Ivka, what are we saying about the game that Green Gully cannot afford to lose?
This is the easiest game of the weekend to tip, Lachie, and to even get yourself a bonus point in our tipping competition that you love. Green Gully 3, Hume City 0.
I have my misgivings about the bonus points, but we'll leave that for after the recording. Nick Tabano, can you tell who's bottom of the tipping comp, by the way? Nick Tabano, what say you of this game?
See, I'm going to tip at Tabano in this game. 2-2 draw. I can't say that Gully or Hume's going to be separated.
There he is. Steve
never left.
Steve Curtin should consider a career in acting because he had to fill in for you last week, and while they didn't count to the tally, the amount of draws he tipped, I was like, this guy's a pod listener. He knows how to do a Nick Tabano impersonation.
He's a method actor. He's very good at his job, and he did the work, he did the study, and I'm glad to see he followed. But Lachie.
I don't know why the pressure's on me to predict this game.
Green Gully or Hume City.
Can I pick a draw or am I not allowed? This feels like
Green
the vote's
Gully.
being swayed.
Or Hume City.
This is a no-win situation for me because of my preseason predictions. I'm going to say Hume win 1-0.
Wow.
So at least then we have an even split. Moving swiftly along. Dandenong City against Caroline Springs George Cross. Mark Ivkuch, I'm going to come to you first again. Is it 3-3 for the mighty Caroline Springs George Cross?
Absolutely not. Lachie Flanagan. Dandy City will get the chocolates in this one. Comfortable 4-1 victory.
Nick, is the Caroline Springs reality brick on its way at Frank Holohan?
Oh, sorry, guys. This is an interesting one because, I mean, as much as Frank Holohan is now a carpet, I'm still thinking Dandy City are still the road warriors and perhaps better still away from home than they are at home. But you know what? I am going to say that Dandy City eke out a 2-1 win against Georgies.
Well, it's true. You do never know when the Kangaroos of Endeavour Hills will decide to make Frank Holohan their home once again.
Genuinely, having driven around there at night, considering my girlfriend lives right near there, it is not a place you don't want to be driving out your high beams. Those Kangaroos, they will come in numbers.
Mate, get them up front. leaping kangaroo up top. Well, fellas, I'm going to give you an encore. Do you one more? Because I reckon it will be a Dandenong City win as well. 3-1 to Heidelberg. I'm going to go for Altona Magic against St Albans Saints. Another game coming in the early Saturday kickoff at Paisley Park. Nick Debano, what say you?
I reckon St Albans back on the winners list in 2026. 2-1 win at Paisley Park for them.
Ivka?
This tip is based on the litmus test of the Oakley post-match team song. So Oakley weren't that energised after the Altona Magic game and struggled in that team song, and then obviously had a lot more zhoof about them after the St Albans one. So that tells me that Altona is a more difficult team to play against than St Albans. So based on that Oakley post-match team song, I'm going to tip Altona 1, St Albans 0.
It's such great logic. Altona 1, St Albans Saints Dynamo 1. Dandenong Thunder against Avondale FC at George Andrews Reserve. Avondale, pretty happy memories of coming to Dandy Thunder in years gone by. Very big win there a couple of years back. Nick, what do you reckon is happening this time around?
I think Dandy Thunder get their first win of the season. I'm going to go 3-2 Dandy Thunder.
Yeah, tough game to tip this one. I think I'm in agreement with Nick, actually. I think Dandenong Thunder will win this one 2-0.
I'm gonna go for the Nick Debano. I'm gonna say it'll be a 2-2 draw between these two. The Formula One lockout, it would seem, has hit South Melbourne because they play Bentley Greens at the home of the Matildas this week. A big snub for Frank McIver Reserve, or whatever the last venue they played at was. Home of the Matildas gets the nod this time. They're very familiar, of course, with this venue, having played there in the OFC Pro League. Will that guide them to yet another win, Ivka?
I think South Melbourne will win this one comfortably, 3-0.
Nick, man?
South Melbourne 2-0.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I reckon it'll be I wanted to say 4-1, but I can't see Bentley conceding 4, so I'll say 3-0 to South Melbourne, and that paves the way for a Super Sunday, starting off with Preston Lions against Heidelberg United. Sunday, 3 o'clock at Janus Steel Stadium. Tough one to predict. Nick, who are you leaning towards?
1-1 draw.
Ivka?
it's going to be a cracker, this one. I reckon Preston will be spewing that Heidelberg lost last week, because that's a big crack up Heidelberg's ass. But being at Genesis Steel Stadium, and I think Preston will win 2-1.
Yeah, I'm usually usually able to find a way to tip a Heidelberg result, but I think Preston are looking the goods. I reckon it'll be 3-2 to Preston. The final game of the weekend, another tasty one. Melbourne City hosting the Oakley Cannons. Nick, are we going to get a rendition of the song? How much gusto are we going to get from the Cannons? Will there be no song at all?
First part, yes, because I think Melbourne City having to go to Thailand for the second leg, see how many players play for their second leg of the Asian Champions League game. They drew that 1-1 in the as we were recording, so they've got it all to play for. Have to take a big squad over to Thailand, so I think that they'll have a bit of a weaker squad, but I think they'll put up a good fight. And I think Oakley just going to be too strong. I'm going to say 3-2. There'll be a strong rendition. I went back and I just did another rewatch of the club song, and got to give a shout out to Thomas Manos, who also came in as the secondary, almost like vice captain, and started smacking the chairs as well. I think that's starting to lead by a bit of example. Geordie Hall getting involved, Jacob Tratt, Saul Liston Diaz and Kingsley Sinclair as well, singing with a bit of gusto, starting to set the tempo. So I reckon we're going to see the best rendition of the song yet. I reckon we're going to get nothing less than a 9 out of 10 for their club song this week.
Mark Ivkovic, what is your prediction for this game?
I think there'll be no team song for either side. I can see this being a 2-2 draw.
Oh, Boo Earns. I reckon we're getting Archie hitting the red button and turning his chair for Tom Manos, because I think Oakley are getting the win, and Tom Manos has got the voice. 2-1 win for the Oakley Cannons.
Do you remember on Australian Idol back in the day, the Mark Holden touchdown? He used to get up
the golden buzzer.
Touchdown! That's going to be Archie with Jordan Hall.
Oh, jeez. Well, usually it takes us a little bit longer for this to happen, but 4 rounds and we have already descended into full-on mania. It's been that sort of a season so far in NPL Victoria. Long may it continue. Enjoy your weekend in NPL Victoria, wherever you're going to be listening, whatever you're going to be tuning in to. Thanks to our sponsors, of course, Content Hype and Melville Bodyworks, your one-stop shop for all your panel beating needs. Don't listen to what certain VPL clubs might try to tell you otherwise. Nick Tabano, Mark Ivkovic, thanks very much for your time. We'll see you all next week.